Welcome to Securing America with me, Frank Gaffney, the program that's a kind of owner's manual for protecting the country we love against all enemies, foreign and domestic, to God's glory and that of his kingdom. We live in challenging times, not just interesting ones, and some of them are the sort that the Chinese mean with that famous curse, may you live in interesting times. They have created a funding stream from people probably like you, people who invest in Wall Street capital markets and perhaps unwittingly are having the fund managers, the masters of the universe, as we've come to call them, migrate a portion of your portfolio to China. And when I say to China, I mean to the Chinese Communist Party, to the entities that it owns and controls, some of which are directly tied to the People's Liberation Army, some of which simply work for the CCP, which means they work for the People's Liberation Army and the rest of this transnational criminal organization. It is a delight to say, when we turn to this topic, that we have with us one of our country's duty experts on the kind of economic warfare that this represents, the unrestricted warfare's economic component. He's studied it closely. He's been warning about it for years. He is championing things that can be done, practical things. And I'm very excited always to introduce my friend and colleague, Kevin Freeman. He is the host of his own television program, Economic War Room, with Kevin Freeman on Blaze TV and other platforms. He's a member of our Committee on the Present Danger, China. He's the author of two best-selling books, Secret Weapon and Game Plan, and a go-to guy on topics like what on earth is our financial sector doing, enabling, underwriting, and otherwise abetting our mortal enemy, the Chinese Communist Party. Kevin Freeman, welcome back to Securing America. It's good to have you, sir.
Thank you, Frank.
So I just want to bring this to a very tight focus. It's a big topic. We'll talk about it in broader detail in the course of, I'm sure, this program and others. But let me start by asking you, Kevin, about something that happened earlier this week. The Federal Retirement Thrift Investment Board, an obscure government agency that manages the $800 billion federal retirement system known as the Thrift Savings Plan, opened a mutual fund window at midnight on Wednesday and now is encouraging, indeed endorsing, investment in mutual funds that at least some of them have Chinese companies of the kind I've just mentioned, some perhaps even sanctioned by our government in their portfolios. What are we to make of this decision, this development, and this danger?
Frank, what it brings to mind are two thoughts. One of them is, could you imagine it's 1940 and we've opened up investments for our servicemen and women into Japan and Nazi Germany? I mean, it would just be horrific. Why would you do that? It would be the worst historical decision you could make. The second thought is that despite the growth of the Chinese economy over the last 20 plus years, it went from 1/10 the size of ours to some estimate larger or roughly equal in size in ours over the last 20 years. It's happened because we funded it.
Exactly.
We've done that. And what scares me about that is the idea, well, what if 20 years ago you decided to invest in a drug dealer and then he took over your neighborhood? I mean, we made lots of money. We invested in a good drug dealer. It's not about the investment. It's about what's good for the world. And this is
Right.
clearly not good for the world.
No, that's so true. Kevin, you have been championing a very different model than that of, say, Larry Fink, the fellow who actually manages most of those $800 billion for this thrift savings plan. Uh, he has not only this fixation with migrating funds, as I said, to China, something he's been paid handsomely by the Chinese for doing, obviously. And he's not alone, but he's the 800-ton gorilla, I think it's fair to say, in Wall Street. But also, he's got something called environment social governance, ESG, that is his other fetish. And he's been trying to get everybody else to conform to it, even though that's completely at odds with how the Chinese operate. Talk a little bit about an alternative to this so-called ESG that you think is in order, and what you're doing to try to enable people who feel as you do and I do to invest patriotically instead.
Well, ESG is a progressive wish list of eliminating fossil fuels, social justice, critical race theory, and gender quotas, including LGBTQ. What we promote is LSV, liberty, security, and values. And we don't do that lightly. We do it because we think it's necessary for America, but we also do it because a poll after poll that we've conducted and others have conducted using similar or in some cases the exact same terminology find that people want to invest to protect their family and protect their country. Imagine that. And
What a
LSV,
concept.
liberty, security, values, does specifically that. It is not some progressive agenda. It is what real Americans want to see happen. It is what we need to be doing, and we can profit from investing in liberty, security, and values. The Chinese don't want that, but the American people do, and so we're giving them a way to obtain that by finding good financial advisors who've been trained on the subject through Liberty University. We have a online course. It launched yesterday. We have our first, or this week, we have our first class operating there. And we're just thrilled because people are accepting it and they're crying out, I want LSV, not ESG.
Yeah. Kevin, tell us a little bit more about this program because, while we've talked about it here, I just don't believe we can talk about it enough as a means of empowering American investors to utilize their funds to advantage our country instead of having other people utilizing their funds to endanger our country. And by the way, quite possibly the investors themselves in this thrift savings plan example, men and women in uniform are people who are going to be having their funds perhaps tapped by Chinese companies that are building weapon systems to kill them. So this is, I'd like to think, personal. Your thoughts?
Well, the problem is Wall Street's very complex, and you get a fund and you get an advertisement and you say, I want to get the best performance. But when you dig down and see what's involved in that, you realize that it's actually your holdings of stocks or ownership. And when you have that ownership, you have a say in how the company is run. Well, people like Larry Fink have taken that say away from you and said, hey, just invest in our fund and we'll do
Mm-hmm.
what we think is best, which could be telling Disney to be more woke. It could be telling ExxonMobil to exit the fossil fuels business. Or it could be telling people they need to be putting their money in communist China or in companies that are doing business that enhance communist China, as they do things like monitor their people, develop social credit scores, do live human organ harvesting,
Mm-hmm.
concentration camps, religious repression. They're
Genocide.
taking our money and doing bad things with it, and people don't know. They don't know how to find that out. We train advisors to help them find out how and what they should do with it.
Now, this is the National Security Investment Consultants Institute. How do people find more about this project, and how, most especially, can they get their fund advisors, their investment advisors, if they have one, to sign up, take this course? And if they don't have an advisor, can you help them find one who is properly trained?
Okay, so first question, find out more at nsic.org, National Security Investment Consultant, nsic.org. And there you'll learn more about LSV investing. And you do need a financial advisor, but most advisors don't know how to do it. So they take our 8-week training course. And at the end of 8 weeks, they join the NSIC Institute and they'll be better prepared to help you. And if you have an advisor who won't take the course, send them to us and we'll train them. If not, find a new
Get
advisor.
a new one. Amen. Kevin Freeman's going to stay with us through the break. We'll be right back with more about food security and what's happening to it right after this.